Sit back and throw one back with your pinky in the air and a middle finger to the world, and join me, the eclectic gentleman Stephen Watts, as we look back on this day in pro wrestling history. But before we do, put that drink down, like, share, and subscribe, and without further ado, let's get our wrestling history on. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it is December 6th, and we're going to start off as we always do on a positive note. That's right, these are your pro wrestling birthdays. 1934, one of the best talkers ever in the business, and one of my personal favorites, former AWA World Heavyweight Champion, Nick Bockwinkel. 1946, he's not going unless he's booked, it's Dennis Stamp. Of course, on the flip side of that coin, your pro wrestling deaths for December 6th. 2014, one half of the Heavenly Bodies, Jimmy Del Rey. 2018, the patriarch of the Hennig family, Larry Hennig. All right, enough of the sad stuff. It's time to get to the meat and potatoes. That's right, these are your pro wrestling history highlights for December 6th. Jumping in the Wayback Machine and grooving to 1960, where we see Gene Knitsky defeat Wilbur Snyder in Minneapolis, Minnesota to win the AWA United States Heavyweight title. 8 years later in 1968, The Professional defeats Johnny Valentine to win the NWA Georgia Heavyweight title in Atlanta, Georgia. The title had been held up by special referee and boxing legend Joe Louis after a match between the two in Atlanta several weeks earlier. We're gonna disco duck straight on through the 70s and land in 1980, where we see the Mongolian Stomper defeat Jack Briscoe for the NWA Georgia National title in Atlanta, Georgia. 5 years later in 1985, Gama Singh defeats Bruce Hart in Calgary, Alberta, Canada for the Stampede British Commonwealth Mid-Heavyweight title, ending Bruce's fourth reign as champion. Our final stop in the 80s, 1989. Candy Devine defeats Judy Martin for the AWA Women's World title in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, starting her fifth reign as champion. The previous champion, Wendy Richter, had vacated the title and left the company. Devine herself would end up abandoning the title in 1990. Grabbing my flannel and going to the decade of grunge, 1993. Tracy Smothers defeats Chris Candido in Jefferson, North Carolina to win the Smoky Mountain Wrestling Beat the Champ television title for a second time. The belt had been vacated by Tim Horner due to injury. And last but not least, 1998, the WWF holds their UK-only pay-per-view, Capital Carnage, at the London Arena in London, England, with a main event of Steve Austin defeating Kane, Mankind, and The Undertaker in a four-way match when he pinned Kane. Those were your short but sweet pro wrestling history highlights for December 6th. I'm the eclectic gentleman Stephen Watts, and we'll see you tomorrow.